Breaking news from the front lines: Ukraine has just pulled off one of its most devastating strikes yet. In a single, precise missile attack, Kyiv's forces obliterated a Russian artillery warehouse worth a staggering $1.5 billion. What followed sent shockwaves through Moscow, and changed the tempo of the battlefield. The recent missile strike carried out by Ukraine against a Russian artillery warehouse valued at an estimated $1.5 billion is being described by military analysts as one of the most consequential blows to Moscow's war machine in recent months. The warehouse, according to sources, was a heavily fortified storage hub containing advanced artillery systems, precision-guided munitions, and critical logistical supplies meant to sustain Russian operations along the Eastern Front. Destroying it in a single strike not only represents a massive financial loss for Russia but also cripples its ability to maintain momentum on key battle lines where heavy artillery has been Russia's central advantage. This strike demonstrates that Ukraine, despite facing shortages of its own, continues to use its limited arsenal with maximum precision and devastating effect. Ukrainian officials have not disclosed the exact weapon used in the attack, but military observers suggest it may have involved long-range precision missiles supplied by Western allies, possibly Storm Shadow or ATACMS, which have proven capable of penetrating deeply into Russian-occupied territory. The significance of this strike cannot be overstated. Artillery has been the backbone of Russia's offensive strategy, often described as the God of War in Moscow's doctrine. By targeting a warehouse that stored not just guns but the ammunition to feed them, Ukraine has essentially punched a hole in the supply line that fuels Russia's battlefield dominance. Reports indicate that the warehouse was located far from the immediate front lines, suggesting Ukraine had access to precise intelligence and the long-range capability to execute such an operation. Satellite images circulating online confirm massive secondary explosions, with fireballs lighting up the sky for hours, consistent with the detonation of large stockpiles of shells and rockets. Witnesses in nearby towns described the blast as earth-shaking, and Russian emergency services rushed to contain the inferno but were unable to salvage the facility. For Russia, the financial impact alone is staggering. A $1.5 billion warehouse represents not only weapons and equipment already in hand but months, even years, of industrial production, procurement, and transport effort. Each artillery piece destroyed takes time to replace, and each pallet of ammunition lost means troops on the front will fire fewer shells in the coming weeks. The fact that Ukraine managed to take out such a facility while conserving its limited missile stockpile reveals both strategic patience and a growing sophistication in Kyiv's war planning. Instead of expending resources on smaller tactical strikes, Ukraine is aiming directly at Russia's logistical heart, striking the very hubs that keep its war effort alive. Beyond the material loss, the psychological impact on Russian forces could be equally severe. Soldiers who have relied on the steady flow of artillery shells may soon find themselves facing shortages, undermining morale on the front lines. Commanders now must rethink storage and distribution, knowing Ukraine has the reach and intelligence to hit even supposedly secure facilities. For the Russian public, news of a billion-dollar loss may be censored domestically, but the scale of the explosion makes concealment difficult, and images have already spread widely online. This transparency makes it harder for Moscow to hide its vulnerabilities, both from its citizens and from the international community watching closely. For Ukraine, the strike is a symbol of resilience. Despite being outgunned, Kyiv has shown it can adapt, innovate, and use every weapon at its disposal to maximum effect. Each successful hit like this strengthens Ukraine's position in negotiations for more advanced Western systems, proving that they can be trusted to employ them responsibly and effectively. Military experts believe that if Ukraine continues this pattern of targeting high-value logistical assets, Russia will increasingly find itself unable to sustain prolonged offensives. The destruction of the $1.5 billion warehouse is more than a headline. It's a turning point that underscores the power of precision warfare in modern conflict and serves as a reminder that even the largest stockpiles are not beyond Ukraine's reach. In the aftermath of the devastating missile strike that obliterated Russia's $1.5 billion artillery warehouse, Moscow scrambled to control both the material damage and the narrative surrounding the event. Almost immediately, Russian state media attempted to downplay the scale of the destruction, claiming that the warehouse housed only outdated equipment or non-essential supplies. However, independent satellite imagery and videos uploaded by civilians in nearby areas told a very different story. The magnitude of the blast, visible from miles away, indicated that the site contained not just basic stockpiles but large quantities of heavy munitions, explosives, and advanced systems vital for ongoing operations. Analysts who reviewed the evidence pointed to the characteristic chain of secondary explosions, flashes of fire, rolling detonations, and towering smoke plumes, that occur only when massive amounts of stored ammunition and high-value weapons are destroyed in a single strike. These visual cues contradicted Russia's narrative, exposing the Kremlin's efforts to manage perception rather than address the real battlefield consequences. Russia's immediate response was to launch a wave of retaliatory strikes on Ukrainian cities, targeting infrastructure and residential areas far from the front line. This has become a familiar pattern. When faced with a direct military setback, Moscow often opts for broad punitive attacks intended to inflict civilian suffering rather than confront the specific vulnerabilities exposed by Ukraine. Within hours of the warehouse destruction, reports emerged of Russian missiles and drones hitting power plants, rail hubs, and apartment complexes. While these actions caused significant civilian disruption, they did little to repair the actual military imbalance created by the loss of such a massive stockpile. This cycle of retaliation without addressing logistical weaknesses demonstrates the increasing strain on Russia's ability to wage a sustained war. Internally, the strike forced Russian commanders into crisis management mode. Military bloggers loyal to the Kremlin but often critical of its leadership began voicing anger online, questioning how such a valuable facility could be left so exposed. Some accused Russia's generals of failing to disperse stockpiles or adequately protect key assets with air defenses. Others speculated that Ukrainian intelligence has infiltrated Russia's logistics network, enabling strikes on sites once thought to be beyond Kiev's reach. This public criticism reflects growing cracks within Russia's pro-war camp, a sign that not even the Kremlin's information control can fully contain the fallout of such a spectacular loss. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials capitalized on this division by highlighting that no amount of disinformation can hide the fact that Russia's resources are finite and vulnerable. On the battlefield, the aftermath was just as important as the initial destruction. Frontline reports suggested that artillery units in several contested areas faced delays in resupply, with fewer shells being delivered in the days following the strike. Although Russia still possesses enormous stockpiles elsewhere, the sudden removal of a major hub disrupted distribution channels, forcing commanders to reroute supplies from other regions. This logistical reshuffling takes time, increases strain on transport systems, and exposes new convoys to potential Ukrainian attacks. In modern warfare, delays of even a few days can shift momentum, allowing defending forces to regroup, counterattack, or reinforce positions before the enemy can recover. Internationally, the strike sent ripples across diplomatic and military circles. Western analysts highlighted it as proof that advanced long-range systems provided to Ukraine are not only effective but transformative. This evidence strengthens Kiev's case for receiving more such weapons, as every strike of this magnitude both weakens Russia and demonstrates Ukraine's capacity to use Western technology responsibly. The symbolic weight of this event is immense. For Ukrainian citizens, weary from months of missile attacks and frontline battles, news of such a decisive blow acts as a rallying point, reinforcing faith that their sacrifices are not in vain. The strike shows that Ukraine can punch above its weight and that with the right tools, even David can land crippling blows on Goliath. For the international community, particularly Kiev's Western partners, the attack is a powerful validation of continued support. It demonstrates that the advanced weaponry provided to Ukraine does not languish unused or wasted but is instead applied with precision to yield maximum strategic results. This success strengthens Ukraine's case for further deliveries of long-range missiles and advanced drones, as it highlights how such tools are force multipliers capable of shifting the trajectory of the war. On the Russian side, the psychological shock cannot be underestimated. The Kremlin is forced to reckon with the reality that its deep rear, once assumed safe, is now within Ukraine's striking reach. The fact that one strike could erase months of logistical buildup erodes Moscow's aura of invincibility. For Russian soldiers on the front lines, the loss of reliable supply lines raises questions about how long they can sustain their current pace of operations. Morale, already fragile in many units, is further strained when the perception of an inexhaustible war machine is shattered. This does not mean Russia is incapable of rebuilding or redistributing its supplies, but every new precaution, every dispersal of stockpiles, and every rerouted convoy adds layers of inefficiency that bleed resources and time. The turning point lies not only in material destruction but in momentum. Wars are not won solely through firepower, they are won by eroding the opponent's will, destabilizing their confidence, and convincing both soldiers and civilians that victory is slipping away. By showing that it can reach deep and strike hard, Ukraine has taken another step toward shifting the narrative of inevitability that Russia has tried to project. Each blow of this magnitude chips away at the Kremlin's story of dominance and builds Ukraine's story of resilience and capability. This is why the warehouse strike will be remembered not just as another battlefield incident but as a pivotal moment when Ukraine proved that precision, intelligence, and determination can bend the course of the war. This is not just about one warehouse, it's about Ukraine showing the world that Russia's war machine is vulnerable, its stockpiles are not untouchable, and its billion-dollar assets can vanish in a single night. Every strike like this erodes Moscow's confidence and strengthens Kiev's resolve. The war is far from over, but moments like these remind us, Ukraine is not just surviving, it is fighting to win.